Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to the ECM podcast. I'm Caroline Fontanieu, and I'm very happy to host this series that will take you behind the scenes of new music on ECM records. In this new episode, I'm meeting over Zoom with Norwegian trumpet player and producer Mathias Eick to discuss his latest ECM album, Lullaby, recorded in Oslo and produced by Manfred Eicher. We talked about musical education, lyrics, the magic of the studio, and so much more.
So yeah, the house is filled with music. But I when I was a kid, my parents, they kind of gave me all opportunities and said like, yeah, you can have a new instrument and we can give you a teacher at any times. But with my kids, I wanted to like check out if they wanted this stuff themselves. So I've been just like putting instruments around the house and just seeing what happens.
They picked it up.
They picked it up themselves.
Was it you always knew that it would be trumpet?
For me, yeah, I guess. But at the same time, I had so much fun playing these other instruments. So I probably told you lots of this stuff last time. But we didn't have a television in our house, or we only had like books and instruments. So in the evenings, we mostly played together. And to me, that's such a beautiful thing to do as a family. So if I really seldom I get the opportunity to play with my kids, and then it's just like the most beautiful thing. But so I think when I was around 6 years old, I had a feeling that trumpet, that's my thing. My parents absolutely did not force me, but the moment I picked up an instrument, the world was full of opportunities in a way. They didn't push, but they were really into this carrot philosophy that they're just like, yeah, come on, that's we'll give you everything you want.
Is it a freedom that you feel you find back in improvisation, in playing like improvised music?
To me, improvising together is also just really a wonderful way of communicating. And of course, different music styles has different ways of improvising.
I read something that you said about like every time you enter a new writing phase, you try to channel a new energy, a new vibration with new musicians, with a new vibe, and that you realize that with Ravensburg and When We Leave, there was something pretty similar because the band was pretty much the same and the vibe, even though the inspirations were different, there was a vibe. What did you want to channel? What emotions did you want to channel for Lullaby?
You know what? When I wrote this song, My Love, it struck me that it sounded almost like Kit Jarrett's 70s vibe with the European quartet with Jan Garbarek and John Christensen and Palle Danielsson. And I kind of always wanted to have a band in that shape and in that energy. Then I just continued on that road, on that path to explore the music and kind of trying to compose music with that energy. So even when we were in the studio, the guys kind of started laughing at a certain point because we sounded too much like the European quartet. So, so we had to take a step back, and okay, let's don't make this too too much the same, And but that's a huge inspiration for me because I've been listening so much to Jarrett and also Jan Garbarek and all these guys from the 70s, and bringing it into our time, and also the composing into our time, then it doesn't sound dated in a way. And that's I think listening to it, I feel that I think we made it. It doesn't sound like a 70s album in a way, but inspiration is there.
When you're talking about Lullaby, you're talking about this beautiful idea of remembering that we all were a child at some point, with just like needed someone to sing us a song to put us to sleep, and That's a beautiful image. That's something that we tend to forget, especially in a world like ours today, in your father. So it also, you're becoming the person who's singing lullabies to your kids.
I'm
But
doing it every night.
there you go. But is that the reason why you wanted the album to be called Lullaby? Like, was it something that you wanted for the whole album to be inspired by, this idea, this reconnection to our inner child, maybe?
Yeah, at least if that resonates for the listener. I mean, if that puts kind of an emotional context to put the music in, that's wonderful for me, because to me it's at least when I was writing the music and playing the music, it's a playfulness, and it's also an emotional state that takes me back to the idea that if you see a violent person, or if you see someone acting bad, it's much more easy to understand that person if you think that there's a little child inside of that person. And as simple as that, if you see the world leaders also as children, that maybe they had a bad childhood, maybe someone didn't sing a lullaby for them every night, and maybe they were sent away when they were 4 years old for boarding school and didn't see their parents much. And there's all kinds of elements going on here, and at least for me, that was an area for inspiration. And also the emotional state of lullaby, that actual song is more like, maybe you should calm down right now, maybe you should think about the mothers and the children in the war zones. And it's a song about hoping that people can relate more to each other, and forget about the idea that people are numbers, but actually human beings.
Yeah.
That's the things that keeps going around in my mind when I'm
No,
trying
that's
to write
very
music.
that's very important. And this whole idea that, I mean, of course, for all the mothers and children in the world, especially in parts of the world where things are awful, but also this idea of just like healing through your own inner child, and just like talk to the child that you once were, and that you still are in a way inside yourself. It's not only about talking to this child, it's also about like singing this child a lullaby and just be like, it's gonna be okay, because that's the point of a lullaby, right? It's just like, you can relax, it's gonna be okay, you can fall asleep
Absolutely.
because you're safe.
That's
So
true. That's so true. And I often experience, if I play my music, I can see grown-up men at the first row sitting crying. And then I feel the music has communicated something non-verbal and something beautiful that made them connect with something inside themselves that didn't come through conversation. It came directly from themselves, because the music I played, for some reason, suddenly opened up a room inside of them. I mean, to me, that's one of the biggest achievements if I get that emotional connection.
I remember our conversation a couple years ago when we were talking about when we leave, and how writing music and playing this music was also something that helped you going through grief. I mean, you're not only playing music to heal, wounds, but there's something extremely interesting. Even if the vibe is different, even if the concept and the inspiration are different, there's still this common thing in your music and in your writing, where it's just gonna heal a part of you and heal a part of someone who's gonna listen it. And it's very generous. It's not the case for everyone, so thank you for that. Oh, for real. When We Leave was about grief, was about allowing someone to leave, allowing someone to disappear from our lives. And I mean, I'm just remembering what your words about, like, also allowing ourselves to just like leave a situation that is not the right one or something. And there's like a beautiful evolution now with Lullaby being something like, now you're safe and
Yeah.
you can relax.
Yeah. I mean, that's again, it's instrumental music. So, and I could write and talk a lot about this, but at the same time, I think it's so nice that you talk about your experiences with the music, and someone else would have another viewing point, and
Yeah.
that's the interesting thing about instrumental music as well. I mean, I started listening to lyrics in music like 10 years ago. Before that, music was just music.
I don't listen to the words either, usually, especially in English.
Huh?
So yeah, I had the
Huh?
same experience.
Yeah, and I mean, most of the music I was listening to had English lyrics, so I was just into the music. But then suddenly, I came to a bigger understanding of the English language, and also a friend of mine told me that you're missing like lots of the meaning of the music if you never listen to the lyrics. So you should start doing that, and then after that I'm like maybe in 20-30% of the time I'm listening to the lyrics as well.
You mentioned a little bit your keyboard player and your pianist and your bassist, but can you tell me a little bit more about this band? Because how was it for you to build a new band and just like go new directions with new partners?
No, I had idea of bringing together a whole new band, and for many years I wanted to record with the piano player Christian Randalu, and we done some duo concerts together. And I traveled to his country, Estonia, and he came to Oslo. And so when I was writing the music, I knew that it was going to be taken perfectly care of, and he was going to do whatever I wanted, and 10,000 times more better than I could imagine. And then I had an idea of just making I call it an acoustic quartet. And the usual band I have is a quintet with electric bass, and this is a quartet with acoustic bass, upright bass. So then I contacted my one of my favorite upright bass players, Ole Morten Vågan, and he's already been inside the ECM world with a few other recordings. The wild card here was like the drummer, because I heard lots of good things, amazing things about Hans Hulbekmo, and actually far out we're related from a valley like 5 hours north of Oslo. And he's a natural child. I mean, he's just walking in the woods for a week alone, and then he comes into the village and he plays drums, and he's he's a mystical figure. But I met his parents, and they told me that he started playing the moment he could start hitting things. He just started playing drums when he was like 2-3 years old, and they are musicians as well. And both of Christian Randalu, the piano player's parents, they're musicians. So it's a bunch of like natural kids coming together and playing. So I had the feeling that this was gonna work, but we didn't have any rehearsal time, so I just booked 5 days in the studio and thought like, yeah, maybe we could rehearse for a couple of days and then we can start recording. But it sounded so good from the first moment, so we just started recording right away and finished the album in 2 days. Yeah, so that was amazing. But we had never played together as a quartet. But Ole Morten, the bass player, and the drummer Hans, they had some projects together, so they knew each other. But the idea was just, yeah, an acoustic quartet with inspirations going back to the 70s. I've known Manfred for almost 20 years now. I'm forever grateful for that confidence and trust he has in me that I could do this project, and I've done it a few times before as well. But he comes with ideas and also corrections from Munich, and then we did a few changes. And then he's also done the mixing in Munich. But I mean, Rainbow Studio is a legendary studio with great equipment and great rooms and great story from all the history of all the ECM albums ever recorded there.
Yeah, so many. I hope I can visit one day. Talking about your relationship with ECM, there's also, I mean, the Benny Lackner album just got out, and you're on it too. And it's so interesting, your marriage, your voice with Mark Turner. I mean, it's just it makes so much sense, and that was really interesting to hear Benny talk about it and explain how obvious it was to imagine those two voices together. Is it a different experience to play on an ECM album but not as a leader? I mean, is the experience different? Like, how is it for you?
I mean, whenever I'm not the leader, I just relax. It's not my responsibility in a way. So
Yes,
I
it's
just
more chill. But with Sinica, that was another experience. I mean, I'm sure that the experience of recording was very different.
It's always different, but I also enjoy like just being in the studio and being a musician and being hired to be myself and just play. But the funny thing about recording with Benjamin Lackner, because Manfred Eicher, he was there for both albums, and just seeing how he kind of shaped the music, and he also kind of for new musicians that haven't met Manfred Eicher before, they tend to be a little bit nervous, and then you have to come through that nervousness and be able to perform. And Benny, I mean, the second album now that we released in January, that he had more of a confidence and more of a ease in his playing than the first one. And I mean, he's safer in the realm of all of us, and that you're limited on time, and the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
It was so nice meeting Linda and Mark and playing together. Mark is such an amazing musician. I mean, he can do whatever he wants on the saxophone. He's wonderful, and he has a beautiful voice in the instrument. Yeah, he's just a really comfortable guy to hang around and play with as well. So that was a huge good day for me.
Yeah, but that's just interesting how, like, with Manu Katché and with Sinica and with Benny Lackner and with all your own projects, I'm sure like all those projects like feed each other and just inspire each other in terms of not only in terms of being a strong voice for ECM projects throughout all those years, but also in writing, I'm sure, and composing.
Yeah. But I really enjoy being asked to do other projects, but I really always looking forward to going into the studio and doing my own projects. And I mean, it's another thing, because the compositions, everything has kind of come from me and my body, and then it feels like it's almost like a child in a way when we're doing this together. But I really enjoy that people are actually asking me to join their albums, and that it works out with Manfred and works out with the musicians.
Mathias Eick about his latest ECM album, Lullaby. Thank you for joining, choosing, and listening to our ECM podcast. I'm Caroline Fontagneux, and I look forward to sharing more music with you in the next episode.